I'm Phyllis. Sitting here in the nursery I painstakingly built, I'm reminded of that fateful Sunday dinner. The tension in the air was palpable as my mother looked me in the eye and declared, "Phyllis, you're the strong one. Vivian needs this $95,000 more than you." My father nodded in agreement, stating, "We voted 6-2. That money is now family money." Vivian, my younger sister, flashed a smile and added, "Don't be selfish, sis. You don't need that big house just yet." And then, the final blow, we've already told Ethan that he and Vivian can use your nursery for 6 months after you close. You'll stay with us and the baby, right? I was 7 months pregnant, having worked grueling overtime shifts as a labor and delivery nurse for 9 long years. I had just painted this sage green nursery with my own hands, and they had already given it away before I even fully owned the house. But I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply said, "Fine. On one condition." The moment those words left my mouth, every smile at the table vanished. Let me take you back to understand how I got here. I've been a labor and delivery nurse at Mercy General Hospital for 11 years. I've witnessed the miracle of over 1,000 births, coached terrified first-time mothers through hours of labor, and stood by women whose babies didn't make it home. This job has taught me the true meaning of protection, how to recognize lies that masquerade as love, and the difference between a calm voice and a small one. I chose the sage green color for the nursery during a break between a 26-week preterm delivery and the birth of twin boys. It was Sherwin-Williams Evergreen Fog SW number 9130. It looked like the color of safety. I taped the paint card inside my locker for 2 months before buying the paint. By the time I started painting the small back bedroom, I was 28 weeks pregnant. My back ached in places I didn't even know existed, and my husband, Ryan, was 80 miles away in Springfield, working on a construction project. But I didn't care. I painted the room one wall at a time over 2 evenings. When the last coat dried, I sat on the floor, placed my hands on my belly, and waited for our daughter to kick. She kicked twice, and I thought, "You're going to grow up in this color. You're going to learn what safe sounds like here." We named her Luna. Luna Grace Thompson. Grace was Ryan's grandmother. She passed away from lung cancer 2 years ago, and Ryan was by her side, taking care of her in her final days. He whispered the name Grace to her before she passed, and she squeezed his hand. When I told Ryan I was pregnant with a girl, he said, "Grace," and I said it would be her middle name. We agreed on Luna together a few weeks later. I'm used to building things on my own. Since I was 12, my mother has called me the steady one. That was the year Vivian fell off her bike and broke her arm. Mom stayed with her in the emergency room for hours and never noticed that I was the one who called the ambulance. I saved for this house one 12-hour shift at a time. I lived in a shared apartment in Elmwood with 2 other nurses for 7 years, even after they bought their own places. While my college friends were posting pictures of their new kitchens on social media, I drove the same old car I bought used right after graduating from nursing school. I never took vacations, and I only bought scrubs. I had a spreadsheet named House Fund 2018 to 2027 that I updated every Friday after my night shift. After 9 years of hard work, I had saved $95,412 in a high-yield savings account. Ryan and I sat down with my best friend, Maya, who is also a great real estate agent. We closed on the house on March 15, 2027. We put down $50,000 and had PMI for the first 18 months, which I planned to refinance as soon as the appraisal allowed. The remaining $95,000 stayed in the account as a reserve for my unpaid maternity leave, nursery furniture, and an emergency cushion. The day we got the keys, Ryan and I stood on the porch. He took a picture of me in my maternity overalls and his flannel shirt. I looked exhausted but incredibly happy. That photo is now the lock screen on my phone. A few weeks before the dinner, my mother started calling me more often. Her calls were friendly, but there was a new kind of question in her voice. She wanted to know about my savings and how my maternity leave would be financially. I answered honestly, telling her about the $95,000 reserve. 3 days later, Vivian texted me, saying, "Hey sis, we should hang out at your new place. I'd love to see the nursery." I hadn't invited her, and I hadn't given her the address, but I knew my mother had. I didn't reply, telling myself I was just tired. The next Saturday, my father drove an hour to bring me a gift for the baby. It was a large wooden frame, clearly something he picked up on the way. He stood in the nursery for a few minutes, looking around as if measuring the space. He took a couple of pictures and said, "Your mom will want to see this." He stayed for about 20 minutes, drank a glass of water, and left the frame on the kitchen counter. I never hung it. Then, a call from my aunt, Stella, cracked the picture open. Aunt Stella is my mother's younger sister. She's 60, a retired schoolteacher, and lives alone in a small cottage near my parents. She called me one evening and said, "Honey, what's the theme of your baby shower? Your mom asked me to bring napkins, but she didn't say the color." I told her I didn't have a shower planned. Ryan and I were going to have a small gathering with my work friends after the baby was born. There was a pause, and then she said slowly, "Your mom said the theme is new beginnings. She told me to RSVP by April 10th. I just assumed she'd cleared it with you." I knew where I'd heard that phrase. I'd seen it on Ethan's Instagram. It was the name of his new project. I sat at the kitchen table, silent for a moment. Aunt Stella asked, "Phyllis, what's going on over there?" I said, "I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out." I hung up and opened the Ring app on my phone. I scrolled back through the footage and found a visit from 3 weeks ago. Vivian was on my porch, wearing a red jacket and carrying a keychain with a unicorn charm. She used a key to unlock the door and went inside. The smart lock log confirmed the entry. She was inside for 25 minutes. I was in shock. I sent Ryan a text asking if he'd given my father a spare key. He replied that he had, thinking it was for emergencies. 10 days later, there was another visit. This time, Vivian was with Ethan. He was carrying a tape measure and a clipboard with what looked like the floor plan of my house. I recognized it because I'd given a copy to my father. I could hear their conversation clearly. Ethan said, "Bedroom 2 could be your office, babe. The nursery is bigger. We can move the crib for now." Vivian replied, "Mom said 6 months should be enough. She'll have the baby at their place anyway. Just don't move anything yet." I was furious but also determined. I made a list with the title family. The first item was to call a locksmith. I called a local locksmith named Jake on a Monday morning. I told him I needed all the locks on the house rekeyed and the smart lock code reset. He said he'd come on Tuesday at 10 o'clock. He showed up on time and worked while I watched from the couch. The sage green nursery was in sight, and he commented on how beautiful the color was. I paid him $400 in cash and kept the receipt. The following week was Easter brunch. My mother announced it a few days in advance, saying we should all be together before the baby came. Ryan and I decided to go. When we arrived, the whole family was there: my parents, Vivian, Ethan, my cousins, and Aunt Stella. My mother had set the table with the good china and a chocolate cake, my favorite when I was a kid. During brunch, Vivian went to the bathroom and left her phone on the kitchen counter. It chirped with a voicemail notification from Ethan. I had a few seconds to decide, and I decided to record it. I used my phone to record the voicemail. Ethan said, "Babe, talk to your mom. She's on board. Phyllis will be at their place after the baby is born, so we can move in first. Once we're in, they can't kick us out. By the time the baby comes, we'll have squatters' rights. Don't bring it up at brunch. Let your mom handle it on Sunday." I stopped recording and sat back down at the table. After a while, I excused myself to get some fresh air. Luna kicked hard as I stood on the patio. I whispered to her, we're not sharing our home with them. Ryan found me and said, let's go home. I have something to show you. In the car, I told him everything. He listened quietly and then said, your mother has been calling me for 6 weeks. I've been saving the voicemails. That night, he took out a USB drive from his backpack. There were 6 voicemails. The 4th one was the most hurtful. My mother said, Ryan, you're not really part of the family yet. You wouldn't understand. Phyllis is being stubborn. Vivian needs this. The baby needs stability. Phyllis can save up again. She's still young. Please help her see the bigger picture. I was heartbroken but also more determined than ever. I decided to write a list of demands. I spent Wednesday night writing 6 points. I printed 8 copies and put them in a brown folder labeled family. I called Aunt Stella, and she said she'd arranged for Pastor Miller to be at the Sunday dinner. She said, that baby in your belly doesn't deserve this. Someone has to stand up. On Sunday, we arrived at my parents' house. Pastor Miller and his wife were already there. Everyone else showed up, and we sat down for dinner. After a while, my mother brought up family business. My father said that Vivian and Ethan had a great opportunity to buy a condo, and they needed a family contribution. They asked for a vote, and most of the family raised their hands. My mother then turned to me and said, Phyllis, you're the strong one. Vivian needs this money more than you. I took a deep breath and said, fine. On one condition. I asked my father for the TV remote. Ryan took out his laptop and connected it to the TV. I showed the ring footage and the voicemail recording. The room was silent. I then took out the folder and read my demands. Point 1. Vivian and Ethan are not allowed to enter my property under any circumstances. Point 2. My parents will return the $58,000 they've taken from their retirement account to help Vivian over the past 5 years, plus an additional $10,000 they withdrew for Ethan's condo deposit. Point 3. Vivian will acknowledge that the money is an advance against her inheritance. Point 4. My parents will tell the truth about where Vivian has been for the past 2 years to Pastor Miller and the church. Point 5. If Ryan and I are in an accident, my cousins will be the guardians of Luna, not my parents. Point 6. The house has been mine for 6 weeks, and any trespassing was illegal. My father nodded slowly, and my mother didn't deny it. I said, there will be no wire transfer on Monday. The $95,000 is mine. I earned it. Ryan is my family, and Luna has her own room. None of you will have a key, and no one will enter her room. We left the house, and Aunt Stella hugged me and said, I'm so proud of you. We drove home, and Luna kicked a few times on the way. The next day, I had many missed calls from my mother, father, Vivian, and Ethan. I didn't answer any of them. A few days later, Vivian texted me saying she was sorry. I didn't reply. My father texted me, asking to talk. I met him at his garage. He gave me an envelope with $4,000 in cash and said it was the first installment. He said he should have stopped my mother years ago. Luna was born a few weeks later. She was healthy and beautiful. My father came to the hospital with a gift and another $4,000. My mother sent a text saying she was sorry and wanted to meet Luna when I was ready. I haven't replied yet, but I know I'll listen when the time is right. This nursery, this sage green room I built with my own hands, is a place of safety for Luna. It's a reminder that I don't have to give in to those who try to take from me. It's a space where only love and protection are allowed.